The Commander Vexus scanner adjusted his ocular implants, focusing on the fragile human female contained within the reinforced holding cell. How peculiar these humans were with their soft exteriors and apparent lack of natural defenses. This particular specimen had been captured during a routine surveillance mission in what the Kondraxian Empire considered a restricted zone. The fact that a lone human had ventured so far into their territory was both puzzling and concerning. Still refusing nutrient supplements, I see, Vexus remarked, tapping a curved claw against the observation panel. You realize that your biological form requires sustenance. Yes, or is stubbornness a trait all humans share? The human female, who had identified herself as Captain Diana Torres of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon, merely stared back with those unsettling round eyes. Unlike the compound visual receptors of Kondraxians, human eyes were disturbingly simplistic, yet somehow conveyed complex emotions that made Vexus uncomfortable. I prefer not to eat something that smells like your planet's sewage system, Diana replied with a curled lip, but thanks for your concern about my well-being. Really warms my heart to know my jailers care. Vexus blinked his secondary eyelids, an involuntary response to confusion. Your heart temperature irrelevant to nutritional intake. Perhaps your translation device is malfunctioning. Diana rolled her eyes, sarcasm wasted on you guys, isn't it? Scientific Officer Zorn wishes to begin the next phase of examinations, interrupted Lieutenant Krell, an Other-Calaxian who had entered the observation room, taller than Vexus with scale patterns in muted greens rather than Vexus's blue gay coloration. Krell had been skeptical of capturing the human rather than simply eliminating her from the start. Wonderful, Diana muttered. Another round of poke the human and see what happens. You guys should sell tickets. Vexus ignored her commentary. Has High Command responded to our report? Krell's throat sac pulsated, a sign of agitation. We are to extract all possible information regarding human expansion plans before disposal of the specimen. They are particularly interested in whether this human was operating alone or if there are others. Diana's expression changed, subtle, something Vexus had been studying since her capture. The slight widening of eyes, almost imperceptible tensing of facial muscles, indicators of what humans called fear. Yet there was something else. A Captain Torres in captivity there. To a flash of was it amusement, you know, Diana said, casually leaning against the transparent barrier. For an advanced species that claims to have conquered half the Orion arm, you are remarkably bad at threat assessment. Krell hissed, his scales flaring. Your species barely managed space travel a century ago. Your technological capabilities are primitive compared to the Empire's. What threat could you possibly pose? Diana smiled, not the baring off teeth that Kondraxians associated with aggression, but something more unsettling. You ever hear the saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog? Another translation error. Vexus dismissed. Uncertainty crept into his posture. Take her to examination room 6. Krell ordered the security drones hovering nearby. Scientific Officer Zorn has prepared a new series of neural probes that should bypass her resistance to our questioning. The barrier dissolved and Diana straightened as the drones approached with restraints. Just so we are clear, she said, that strange smile still playing on her lips. I have been keeping track of time. Since you grabbed me, it's been approximately 72 worth hours, which means you have about, I'd say 8 hours left. Vexus tilted his head. 8 hours until what? Human, until you really wish you'd left me alone. As Thedrones escorted Diana from the cell, Vexus felt an unfamiliar sensation ripple through his nerve clusters. The humans had a word for it, one he had studied in their transmissions: foreboding. She's attempting psychological initial, Krell said dismissively, a primitive tactic. Perhaps, Vexus replied, watching Diana's receding form. But I have been studying human communication patterns. They rarely make direct threats. Instead, they often employ what they call understatement when they are most dangerous. Nonsense. The specimen is alone and helpless. Vexus wasn't soldier. Scientific Officer Zorn was not what humans would consider attractive even by Kondraxians. His elongated cranial structure housed an oversized brain that had earned him prestige within the Empire's scientific community. But the genetic modifications had left his body disproportionate and his movements awkward. Fascinating resilience, Zorn muttered, adjusting a neural scanner hovering above Diana's restrained form. Most species show significant psychological deterioration After our standard interrogation procedures, sorry to disappoint, Diana replied through gritted teeth. The neural scanner was causing obvious discomfort, but she maintained her defiant demeanor. Humans are pretty good at being stubborn. It's like our superpower, not your only capability of interest. Zorn continued, his three-fingered hands dancing across holographic controls. Your species' adaptability and reproductive efficiency are quite remarkable potential threat indicators that the Empire cannot ignore. Diana laughed, a sound that always made Vex's scales tighten slightly. So that's what this is about. You are afraid we will outbreed you, colonize faster than you can. The Koldraxian Empire has stood for 20 years, Zorn stated flatly. We have encountered and subjugated for 117 distinct sentient species. Yours will be no different. Aha. And how many of the seed? Interrogation begins. Species fought back. Zorn paused, his massive eyes blinking slowly. 38 attempted resistance. All were eventually pacified. Diana nodded thoughtfully. And of those 38, how many were like humans, evolved on a death world, survived multiple extinction level events, and developed from pack hunting predators who chase their prey until it collapsed? Said from exhaustion. For the first time, Zorn appeared momentarily discontented. Your evolutionary history is unusual. That's not even getting into our cultural history. Diana continued conversationally, if they were discussing the weather rather than existential species conflicto. You know what humans did before we had space travel? We spent thousands of years perfecting ways to kill each other. But really good at it. Vexes, who had been observing silently from the corner of the examination room, stepped forward. Your species' violent tendencies are precisely why the Empire has designated Earth a restricted zone. You present a destabilizing gentle. Diana turned her gaze to him. And yet here I am, deep in your territorial. By myself, one little human causing all this fuss. The subtle emphasis on all by myself triggered Vex's suspicion. Once again, you continue to insist you were operating alone, despite evidence that your vessel's life support systems were configured for multiple occupant standard design. Diana shrugged, or attempted to, against her restraints. Why build different ships for different crew sizes when you can standardize efficiency? Commander, something your Empire could learn about. Zorn activated another scanner, this one focusing on Diana's neural patterns. Subject's confidence suggests either psychological conditioning against capture, or he trailed off, his enormous eyes widening fractionally. Or what? Krell demanded, having just entered the examination room, or she genuinely believes rescue is imminent. Zorn finished quietly. Diana's smile returned wider than before. He give the by-grained alien a prize. Krell strode forward aggressively. Impossible. Our outpost is hidden within Cerulean Nebula. Your primitive sensors cannot penetrate its electromagnetic infiltrator. No one knows you are here about that, Diana said, sighing dramatically. You really should have done a more thorough scan of my ship before you blew it up. Might have found they have about 8 hours left. Quantum entanglement communicator completely unaffected by your fancy nebula. By the way, the three Craxians exchanged glances. Quantum entanglement communication was theoretically possible, but was considered beyond human technological capabilities. She's bluffing, Krell insisted, but his throat sac had turned a pale yellow, a sign of uncertainty. Am I? Diana countered. Tell me, why would one human in a small exploration vessel venture into restricted space alone? Doesn't that strike any of you as odd? Maybe even tactical. Vexes felt his blood run cold. You are bait. Diana winked at him. Now who's the clever reptile? The examination room's alarm suddenly blared, bathing everything in pulsing red light. Krell rushed to the communication panel. Security breach in docking bay 3. Unknown vessel has bypassed our defense grid. Unknown vessel, Diana repeated with mock surprise. Your vessels, plural, because humans, we like to travel in packs like those predators I mentioned earlier. Zorn was frantically reviewing security footage. Impossible. Our sensors detected nothing approaching the station. Stealth technology, Diana explained casually. Turns out when you spend millennia trying to kill each other, you get pretty good at not being seen until it's too late. The station shuddered violently, and the lights flickered. Urgency containment protocols initiated, automatically sealing out compartments. That would be the first phase, Diana commented, seemingly relaxed despite the chaos. Tactical EMP to Dizable. Your Secondary systems followed by targeted strikes on your weapon platform. Standard human first contact protocol when one of ours is being held captive. First contact. Vexus repeating cradily, you have been studying our communications for years. Studying, yes, but we hadn't officially met until you grabbed me. Congratulations, Commander Vexus. You have just initiated humanity's first official interaction with the Coldraxian Empire. Diane expression hardened. Unfortunately for you, you chose to make it a hostile one. Another explosion brought the station closer. This time the restraints holding Diana suddenly disengaged, not from the impact Vexus realized, but from a targeted system override. Diana stood rubbing her wrists right on schedule. Krell drew his plasma pistol, but Diana was already moving with surprising speed for her species. Vexus had categorized as physically inferior. Ducked under Krell's arm using his own momentum to send him crashing into Zorn. The scientific officer collapsed into the larger Coldraxians. Weight is specialized neural equipment smashing against the floor. Sorry about the rough handling, Diana said, not sounding sorry at all, but you were about to fry my brain with that neural probe, so let's call it even. Alexis reached for his own weapon, but froze when Diana pointed Krell's dropped pistol at him. I wouldn't, she advised. Human reflexes revealing the human trap, another evolutionary advantage of coming from a death world. The station's communication system crackled to life, and a human voice speaking fluent Coldraxian filled the room. Attention, Coldraxian outpost. This is Captain Marcus Reed of the Earth Defense First Vessel Thunderchild. You are holding a citizen of Earth against her. Will you have 5 minutes to surrender the prisoner and prepare for boarding, or we will be forced to take more aggressive action? More aggressive, Vexus echoed. You have already disabled our primary defense systems. Diana shrugged. That was just to get your attention, Captain Reed is being diplomatic. The Thunderchild is a Valkyrie-class destroyer. It could turn this entire outpost into space dust, but that would defeat the purpose of this mission, which is, Zorn asked, struggling to his feet. Cultural exchange, Diana replied with a grin. Humanity has been watching the Caldarian Empire for decades. We know about your expansion, your subjugation of other species. We decided it was time to introduce yourselves properly, show you what humans are really capable of before you made the mistake of considering us just another conquest. The station rocked again as another explosion hit even closer. That would be the boarding team, Diana explained cheerfully. Don't worry, they are under orders to minimize casualties. We are not monsters after all. Vexus stared at the human female who had appeared so vulnerable in her cell. How thoroughly they had underestimated Heron, by extension her entire species. You planned this, he realized it aloud. You allowed yourself to be captured. Diana winked. Give the commander another prize. I volunteered. Actually, special forces background, extensive anabolic training, and a particular talent for irritating authority figures. The perfect candidate to make first impressions. The door to the examination room burst open and 3 humans in sleek combat armor entered, weapons raised. Their helmets concealed their features, but their movements were precise and coordinated in a way that revealed extensive training. Captain Torres, one of them, acknowledged. Extraction route is secure. The Thunderchild has the entire outpost surrounded. Thanks, Jackson, Diana replied. Any trouble? Nothing serious. Their security systems were exactly where your intelligence said rescue operation commences. They'd be. Diana turned back to Vexus, who hadn't moved from his position. Commander, I believe this concludes our initial diplomatic exchange. A transport vessel will be arriving shortly with actual diplomats, the kind that talk instead of shoot. I suggest you prepare your superiors for a very different conversation than the one they we're expecting. Exus found his voice at last. The Empire will never negotiate with the lesser species. Diana's expression turned serious. For the first time, then the Empire will fall, because if there's one thing you should understand about humans, Commander, it's this: we never leave our people behind. Not ever. They thought I was alone, but Earth was already on the way. Diana and her extraction team backed out of the room. She gave Vexus one final, almost sympathetic look. For what it's worth, I think you are smarter than most of your colleagues. When your leaders ask how this happened, tell them they made the classic mistake. They judged us by our appearance, not our capabilities. She tapped her temple. Remember that for next time, if there is a next time. The door sealed behind them, leaving the 3 Coldraxians in stunned silence as alarms continued to blare throughout the station. What have we done? Zorn whispered, his scientific curiosity now replaced with genuine fear. Vexus stared at the closed door, realizing that the galaxy had just become a much more complicated place. Woke a sleeping giant, he answered softly, and somewhere on the station, he could almost swear he heard Diana Taurus slawing. 3 standard rotations had passed since the human extraction team had stormed the Caldraxian outpost. The High Council chamber aboard the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign Dominion vibrated with tension as Commander Vexus Scanner delivered his report. 7 elite counselors glared down at him from their elevated platforms, their scales shifting through various hues of displeasure. So you mean to tell us, Grand Admiral Thaxus rumbled, his massive form dwarfing the other counselors, that a single human male orchestrated this entire humiliation? That she allowed herself to be captured as part of a calculated first strike against our empire. Exus maintained perfect posture despite the crushing pressure of the Admiral's gaze. Yes, Grand Admiral Captain Torres was, as she explained, bait the humans anticipated our response to her incursion and used it to gather tactical intelligence while simultaneously entrance their technological capabilities. Science Director measured her scales, an unusual pearl white that denoted her genetic modifications for enhanced cognitive function. Leaned forward, and you believe their claim of possessing quantum entanglement communication technology? The evidence supports it. Vexus replied, no other known method could have penetrated the nebula's interference to summon their rescue fleet so precisely. Military strategist Dorn, the oldest council member whose battle card Earth was already on the way, had told stories of countless campaigns, clicked his talons against his console. What of their vessels? You describe them as Valkyrie-class destroyers. Yes, strategist, significantly more than our cruisers, but with stealth capabilities beyond anything in our arsenal. They penetrated our sensor grid without triggering a single proximity alert. Their weapon systems appeared to be primarily electromagneticals based, designed to disable rather than destroy, a peculiar choice for a species you describe as evolved from predators. Noted cultural affairs minister Lyra, the only female on deck. Conceal predators typically eliminate threats completely. Vexus hesitated. Captain Torres indicated this was deliberate. The attack was measured, designed to demonstrate capability while avoiding unnecessary casualties. She called it a warning shot. Chamber fell silent among Caldraxians. Warnings were considered a sign of weakness. You struck with full force or not at all. These humans intrigue me, Lyra finally said. Their approach defies conventional strategic doctrine. They had the element of surprise and superior positioning. Gechos restraint. Grand Admiral Thaxus snorted derisively. Weakness, not restraint. Had we captured their extraction team, we would have learned far more about their true capabilities. With respect, Grand Admiral Vexus countered carefully. Their restraint appeared tactical, not born of weakness. Captain Torres implied their vessels could have reduced the entire outpost to debris, but such action would have been counter to their mission objective, which was prompted. Science Director Misa, as Captain Torres stated, cultural exchange to introduce themselves on their terms. Nidars Resource Minister Pox, who had remained silent until now, suddenly lawed a harsh grating sound rarely heard in council chambers. Cultural exchange. How quaint. They must realize the Empire does not exchange with lesser species. We assess, we categorize, we subjugate. If useful, we eliminate. If nobody believe they are aware of our standard protocols. Vexus replied. Captain Torres specifically mentioned our history of subjugating other species. She seemed unimpressed. Royal counselors shifted uncomfortably. The Empire's superiority was axiomatic. Magnifer questioned what of the diplomatic vessel they promised. Asked Caldraxian High Council Lyra. It arrived precisely when predicted. Vexus confirmed a larger ship, unarmed but heavily shielded. They left behind communication protocols and a formal request for diplomatic recognition. They are awaiting our response. Grand Admiral Thaxus slammed a massive fist onto his console. The response of the Caldraxian Empire to such impudence should be swift and devastating. We should dispatch the 7th Fleet immediately to locate their home world. And the humans provided the coordinates to their home system voluntarily. Vexus interrupted, causing a collective gasp at his breach of protocol, along with detailed star charts of their colonial holdings. 17 settled worlds. Grand Admiral, with indications of further expansion underway. Strategic Officer Dorn's eyes narrowed. A bluff. Surely our surveys indicated They had barely established a presence on their own moon. Those surveys are now 20 standard years outdated, Director Misa pointed out. And clearly our intelligence on their technological development was flawed. Vexus nodded. Captain Torres made specific reference to our underestimation of their capability being a critical error. Their diplomatic package includes historical records, suggesting humans advanced more in the past century than many species do in millennia. Why demanded Thaxus what caused such rapid development? Petition. Vexus replied, simply internal competition between their own factions. They were divided for most of their history, constantly struggling against one another for resources and territory. Their technologies evolved through warfare and rivalry. Cultural Affairs Minister Lyra tapped her claws thoughtfully, like the Vrexian evolution cycle, but sustained over thousands of years rather than contained to mating seasons. Fascinating. What do these humans want? Resource Minister Pox asked bluntly. Territory, resources, technology, exchange. Rakovni and Vexus answered, and boundaries. Their diplomatic communication states explicitly that they have no interest in Sidraxian territory or resources. They merely wish to establish clear borders and non-aggression protocols. Grand Admiral Thaxus laughed harshly. So they fear us after all? No, Grand Admiral Vexus said quietly. Do not believe fear motivates their approach. During my interactions with Captain Torres, I observed many emotional responses. If fear was not among them before Thaxus could respond, the chamber security alert activated. A communications officer rushed in, posture showing extreme agitation. Forgive the intrusion, honored counselors, the officer gasped, but we have detected multiple vessels approaching the dreadnought. They appear to be human in origin. The council erupted in outrage and confusion. Impossible, Thaxus roared. No non-imperial vessels could penetrate our defensive perimeter without detection. They have been detected. Grand humans arrive at the Imperial Dreadnought. Admiral, the officer clarified, they appear to be making no attempt at concealment. They are broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies, requesting permission to approach. Science Director Misa activated her console, pulling up sensor readings. 5 vessels, 1 larger central ship, 4 smaller escorts in defensive formation. The design matches Commander Janar's description of the human vessels from the outpost incident. They followed you here, Thaxus accused, glaring at Vexus. Impossible, Vexus replied firmly. I followed all counter-surveillance protocols during my return journey. Their communication is being translated to High Cauldron. The officer continued. The lead vessel identifies itself as EDF Madrid, carrying Ambassador Elena Frost of the United Earth Government. They state their visit was scheduled through diplomatic channels established at Outpost 17. Cultural Affairs Minister Lyra turned to Vexus. Is this the diplomatic vessel? Captain Torres mentioned no, Minister. That was a smaller ship designated for initial contact only. This appears to be a formal diplomatic mission. Grand Admiral Thaxus rose to his full imposing height. Destroy them immediately. This is clearly an infiltration tactic designed to wait. Science Director Maisie interrupted, studying her console intently. These readings, the human vessels are maintaining position exactly 10-0 units from our defense perimeter. They have made no aggressive movements, and their escort vessels, the energy signatures, are unlike anything in our database. What do you mean? Demanded Thaxus. That their power output exceeds our sovereign-class dreadnoughts by a factor of 3. Misa replied, her voice tinged with scientific curiosity rather than fear. Yet the vessels are less than 1/4 the size. Strategic Officer Dornuo had been silently analyzing the situation. Finally spoke. They are neither to attack. They are here to negotiate from a position of strength. His ancient eyes fixed on Vexus. Just as your Captain Torres predicted, we cannot allow this insult. Paxith bellowed. No lesser species approaches the High Council without proper subjugation protocols. Resource Minister Pox surprisingly raised a hand for calm. Before we commit to potentially costly action, perhaps we should consider the strategic technologic superiority revealed implications. These humans have demonstrated advanced stealth technology, weapons capable of disabling our systems without destruction, and now power generation that exceeds our most advanced vessels that clearly possess the capability to have approached undetected yet shows visibility of valid observation. Lyra agreed. Their behavior continues to contradict standard strategic doctrine. They expose their position, willingly placing themselves at apparent disadvantage while simultaneously displaying superior technological ability. Psychology, Vexus said. Suddenly drawing allies, Captain Torres explained that humans study psychology extensively, the understanding of how other species think and behave. I believe this approach is calculated to create specific reactions within our leadership science. Director Mises' eyes widen slightly. Fascinating. Hippides, they deliberately trigger our aggression response while simultaneously demonstrating the futility of such aggression, a sophisticated form of psychological warfare. We should receive their ambassador. Lyra suggested, earning a furious hiss from Thaxis. Never, the Empire does not negotiate with inferior. And are they inferior? Grand Admiral Dorn interrupted, his ancient voice cutting through Thaxis's bluster. Based on available evidence, can we confidently make that assessment? Uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Commander Ganner misaddressed Vexus directly. You have had the most direct contact with these humans. What is your tactical assessment? How would they respond to hostility is considered? Carefully, Captain Torres matted their position. Quite clear, humans never leave their people behind. If we were to attack this diplomatic vessel, I believe their response would be disproportionate. Prompted Door, meaning they would interpret such action as confirmation that peaceful coexistence is impossible. Based on my assessment of their psychological profile and demonstrated capacity, I believe they would transition immediately from diplomatic outreach to full military engagement. They would declare war over a single ship. Thaxis scoffed. They launched a precision military operation to recover a single captured officer. Vexus reminded him their loyalty to individual members of their species appears to be a cultural cornerstone. Yes, Grand Admiral, I believe they would. The communications officer, still waiting at attention, cleared his throat nervously. The human ambassador, ICE, New Galactic Order, emergence requesting a response. They say they will maintain position for one standard. Before interpreting Zelens as rejection of diplomatic contact, all eyes turned to Grand Admiral Thaxis, whose authority in military matters was absolute. His skills shifted throughout patterns of rage, calculation, and finally reluctant pragmatism. Established communication, he ordered, tersely informed them that the Cedraxian Empire will receive their ambassador. Security protocols at maximum. The officer hurried away. Thaxis fixed Vexus with a cold stare. You will attend this meeting, Commander. Senseo seemed to understand these humans better than most. Vexus bowed respectfully. As you command, Grand Admiral. This is unprecedented resource. Minister Pox muttered. Never in 20 years has the Empire negotiated with a non-subjugated species. Perhaps, Lyra suggested quietly, that is precisely why the humans have approached us this way. They have studied our history and decided to force a new precedent. Science Director Miser nodded slowly. Adaptation. If Commander Jenner's assessment is accurate, these humans excel at adapting to new challenges rather than conforming to established patterns. They create new ones advantageous to their position. Strategic Officer Dorns. Ancient, I seem to look beyond the chamber walls. I have witnessed the rise and fall of many species across my long life. Those who survive are rarely the strongest or most aggressive. They are the ones who recognize when the galaxy has changed around them and change with it. The concile chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 20 years, Coldraxian Empire had followed the same expansion model: identify, assess, subjugate, assimilate species. They persisted, were crushed beneath overwhelming force. It was simple, effective, and had never truly been challenged until now. As Vexus prepared to meet the human ambassador, he recalled Diana Torres' parting words. They thought I was Alan Nearth was already on the way. How thoroughly they had underestimated humanity, a mistake the Empire had never made before, and one Vexus suspected they would never make again. The age of uncontested Caldrian dominance was ending. A new galactic power had emerged, one that refused to follow the established rules of engagement, one that combined predatory instincts with psychological sophistication and technological innovation in ways the Empire had never encountered. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not with fear or submission, but with calculated defiance, and the Coldraxian Empire would never be the same.